Good evening. It's a packed room. Welcome to Leadership Upper Arlington's Candidates Night. My name is Natalie Bowe, and I'm the Executive Director. On behalf of our Board of Directors, I would like to thank each of you, everyone at home, and all of our candidates for participating this evening. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to the City of Upper Arlington, as well as our volunteer committee members, Linda Mager, our Board President Linda Malakis, and Marianne Mitchell for their efforts to prepare this evening. Tonight's moderated forum is being broadcast live on the City of Upper Arlington's website. Please take a moment to silence all electronics. As a reminder, there is a mask policy in place. Unless you are speaking or eating and drinking, we are asking that you keep your mask on. As a nonpartisan organization, Leadership Upper Arlington is proud to host this public forum. Since 1988, Leadership UA has provided the community with leadership development and programs to help create effective community leaders and increase dialogue between residents. Participating in one of our programs provides you the opportunity to network, strengthen leadership skills, and broaden your understanding of local issues. We have more than 500 alumni, many of whom serve in local and state leadership roles. Please follow us on social media or visit leadershipua.org to stay connected and learn more about tonight's candidates as well. Early voting began this week, and in addition to voting for 4 city council members and 2 school board seats, UA residents will vote on issue 24, the police and fire pension levy. At this time, I'd like to invite City Manager Steve Shoney to share additional information. Please join me in welcoming Steve.
Thank you, Natalie. I am very happy to be sharing some information with you about an issue that we have coming up, and even more happy that I'm not actually personally on the ballot, as everyone else you're going to hear from tonight is. So go ahead. So the issue 24 is the police and fire pension levy. This is a replacement levy for us to be able to fund our pension obligations for our police and fire. As you may know, police and fire make up about half the budget for the city of Upper Arlington. They are obviously among the most important pieces of our community and of our city services. And they're something that when we talk to our residents and when we ask our residents, we see extreme amounts of satisfaction with the job that they're doing. And I just have to say, from a personal standpoint, there is not a more dedicated group of people in this city than our police and fire. They come to work every day, every night, and make sure that we all stay safe. And so what we're asking the voters to do is to do what the voters have done for the last 45 years, and support a renewal of our police and fire pension levy. This levy goes to pay the city share of our pension obligations for police and fire. Goes to pay 100% of that. This is part of what is already within your tax bills. If you didn't know, only about 8% of your property tax bill goes to the city, and this is a portion of that 8%. We anticipate that over the life of this 5-year levy, it'll collect about $3.2 million per year for us to be able to put into our police and fire pension obligations. So this renewal is actually reduction. We have had good performance in the fund in terms of our pension obligations being a little lower than we projected, some of our revenue under the prior millage being a little bit higher than we expected. So council was able to approve putting this on the ballot with a 8.25% reduction in the amount of millage. For the average $100,000 in home value, the proposed rate would be $31.15 per year per $100,000 of value. Ballpark, the average home in Upper Arlington is about $400,000. So for that average home, it would cost $124.60 a year. That's down $11.21. From what is currently on the books. So with that, that's the sum total of my presentation and my attempt to inform you a little bit about what we've got on the ballot for this year. We think this is a very responsible way for us to continue funding one of our key obligations and do it in a way that holds down costs for our residents. So with that, I'm going to conclude that presentation, and it is my distinct honor to be able to move us along in the program and introduce the Mayor of Upper Arlington and our City Council President, Mr. Brendan King. Brendan stepped into that role in January of this year, and has, I'm not just saying this because he's my boss and he's standing right behind me, but he really has been a fantastic partner for those of us in the administration. I also was remiss in not introducing Jackie Thiel, who is our Assistant City Manager. Many of you may know her from her time as Public Service Director for the city. We promoted her in February to take over as the Assistant City Manager, and she is doing an amazing job in helping us keep the trains moving on time and keep the streets cleaned and the police and fire on the streets and make sure our parks are open. So she's been doing a fantastic job. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brendan to give a little bit more official welcome from the city.
On behalf of City Council, on behalf of the city staff, welcome to the municipal building. It's been a while since we've been this crowded. So it's good to see good energy, and it's good to see people here again. So thank you for coming out. You're here tonight to listen and learn about the candidates for Upper Arlington School Board and City Council. We need, before we get into that, we need to thank the team at Leadership UA. We need to thank Natalie and the team. This is routinely the biggest event in the election cycle, and they do a great job. It appears that this year is no different. So let's take a minute and thank Natalie and Leadership UA. As a veteran of two of these nights, I think I know firsthand what the candidates are going through and the feelings that come with the home stretch of a campaign. I congratulate you all, the 5 school board candidates as well as the city council candidates. You've all ran campaigns you can be proud of. You've exhibited civility and that we've come to expect in Upper Arlington. And I know tonight's event will continue to provide an exchange of vision and ideas, all in a civil manner. I wish all the candidates the best of luck over tonight and the next 3 weeks. Hang in there, you're almost to the finish line. Thanks, and have a great night. Back to Natalie.
Thank you, Steve and Brendan, and welcome, Jackie. In a moment, you'll hear from 5 nonpartisan Board of Education candidates, as well as 7 City Council candidates seeking election for a 4-year term to lead our community. In preparation for tonight, we solicited questions and invited the residents to submit their questions to candidates. We received an overwhelming number of submissions, which were consolidated into the topics you'll hear in just a few moments. The forum is not meant to be a debate, but an opportunity for you to be informed on the candidates that you are voting for and how they will lead our community. It is our hope you will continue a civil dialogue beyond tonight and help build our future together. Our elected officials will be leading us during a time of positive growth and new beginnings while supporting strategic plans. We are pleased to have Kurt Ludlow of ABC Fox 28 News Team to facilitate the forum. Kurt anchors the morning news and is a veteran award-winning journalist. He has spent most of his 30-plus years in his career covering issues and events that are making a difference in the lives of Central Ohioans. Kurt is a graduate of the University of Colorado and received a law degree from Capital University in Columbus. Kurt and his wife live here in Upper Arlington and are active residents. Please join me in welcoming Kurt.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you again in person. Yes, a round of applause for being back in person. Last year when we did this, if you recall, there were probably 10 of us. We were talking about it earlier tonight. There were probably 10 of us in here, and it was very quiet, just the candidates and me asking questions. And it was a little different vibe because it's different when you have a room full of people, and as a candidate you can look into the eyes, hard to see the smiles, but you can look into the eyes of the people that you want to speak with. So it's going to be nice to be able to do this once again. Before we begin the moderated portion of this, we want to remind everybody to please silence your cell phone, turn it off, because this event is being live streamed now over the city's website. as far as the candidates are concerned, we ask you to speak clearly and loudly so that anyone watching remotely can hear the responses to the questions. The list of tonight's questions are based on current issues and questions from people in our community. We received a large number of questions. We'll do our best to address each one. If we don't have time to get to a specific question that you have on your mind tonight, we encourage you to submit your question directly to each candidate. We're going to start tonight's forum with a 1-minute introductory remark session from our school board candidates who are all on stage. Specifically, in your opening statement, we'd like to know why you were running for the Upper Arlington Board of Education. So here we go. Let's begin with Liz Easton. We'll continue in alphabetical order, and as a reminder, you'll be notified when you have 10 seconds left.
Good evening. My name's Liz Easton, and I have lived in Upper Arlington for 15 years. My husband grew up here and graduated from UA. We had 3 children that all graduated from Upper Arlington, including our youngest son, who graduated in the infamous 2020 pandemic class. I'm running for the school board because I want to bring the focus back onto what I'm calling the 3 A's: academics, athletics, and activities. That's what makes a school great, and that's what makes a student really well-rounded. And so my goal is to, one of my main goals that I'm going to talk about tonight is that I'd like to travel around the state of Ohio, look at all the different schools, programs that we could hopefully bring back to Upper Arlington and just make our schools the best. A great education for our children is the most important thing for their future. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Moore, and I have served 2 terms on the Upper Arlington Board of Education. I have served as president and as vice president, currently as vice president. I was part of the community process where we undertook and decided to move forward on the 5 elementaries and the new high school all the way through completion on time and on budget. Plus, in my background, I went to MIT, and then I interview for MIT and have a lot of insights about our students from UA who I interview with. And then I also went back and got a nursing degree from Capital University. So I've also worked as a nurse while serving on the board. Nothing is more difficult than the challenges we've had in this past year, and that's why I think that you should elect people with experience, and that's why Scott, Mackenzie, and I are running together as current board members running for re-election. Thank you.
Scott?
It's tough to do a minute, I'll tell you. So I served in the Groveport-Madison schools for 34 years in a variety of different positions before becoming a board member here. I've been a teacher, a principal, business manager a couple different times, assistant superintendent, and then superintendent. The last 6 years of my career in public education, I was, as I mentioned, superintendent. And that school district was 6,000 students, 500 staff members, 10 school buildings, 75 buses, and a yearly budget of over $72 million. The last 4 years, I have served on the Upper Arlington Board of Education, and it's been probably the honor of my life to get to serve on such a prestigious school board. And I hope that you will see to it that I can come back and help continue the progress forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Nidhi?
Thank you. Thank you to our hosts. Thank you to my fellow participants and to those of you who are watching, my husband, my kids at home. Hey, guys. So I am running for our school board because I am really excited about the direction that we can take our district right now. This past year, we made a village. Our teachers, our principals, our parents, our custodial staff, our nurses, our counselors, we all came together. And that is how we got through this past school year. We all came together. My slogan is every bear forward. And I believe with the right leadership in place, we can use that village that we have created and we can make sure that each and every student is supported in every classroom. We can make sure that innovation and creativity comes back into our district, and we can make sure that we restore civility by opening communication lines. My professional experience is in public health, and I've been a volunteer in our schools, and those skills, I believe, make me a great candidate for our school board, and I'm looking forward to this conversation where we can dive into some of these details. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou.
First off, thanks to my wife and son who are out here tonight. I appreciate your support. This is particularly tough on them as well. My path to Upper Arlington is similar to a lot of people's path here. I've lived here for over 40 years. I was born on the south side of Columbus, and by the time when my older brother Chris was born, my mom looked at my dad, who was a donut maker, and said, we have to move outside of Columbus City Schools. We're going to find the best school district, and we're going to buy a house there. And they scrimped and scraped, saved to do that. And by the time my older brother Chris was eligible to go to kindergarten, my parents bought a house on Darkhand Drive, and I went to Greensview, Hastings, and graduated from here in 1989. At that time, we were the lighthouse district in the Central Ohio and one of the top 10 in the state. And when I was shocked to find out that we had dropped to 67th in the state of Ohio, that my mission and my reason for running for school board is to change that, to redirect our schools to academic excellence. That's why I put forward the Academic Competitive Excellence Initiative on my website at lousauterforua.com.
Thank you. All right, time to move on to the questions now. You'll each have a set time, up to 2 minutes, to respond to each question. And remember, you don't have to use all of the time. If you find that you're in agreement with the previous answer, you can say that and kind of move on. And that might allow us to get to an extra question or two tonight. So we ask you to respond as much in detail as you can about each question. So here we go. Question number 1. In August of 2019, the UA School Board approved a strategic plan for 2019 through 2024 that focuses on educating and supporting the whole child. The plan was designed after extensive input from students, families, staff, and community. Under the plan, the school's mission is to challenge and support every student every step of the way. The plan guides all key decisions regarding learning, instruction, resource allocation, physical environment, and day-to-day operations. How will you support the continued implementation of the strategic plan? So you have 2 minutes, and we'll begin with Carol.
Thank you very much. I will continue to support every child every step of the way by making sure that opportunities are available to our students, regardless of if they are the very brightest or if they're in the middle or if they need an extra help. Our administration is putting forth a multi-tiered system of support that you'll learn more about if you're parents that will help students where they are and have less time for splitting them apart, but having a model for them to be learning what deficit they might have, to have them be brought up and do their best. Another way that we're addressing the whole child is through Explorations Hour, which is all students from a grade level in each elementary every other week are having an I'll call it an event, but the way I think about it is like UA Idea Day, but it is with our teachers going and running these events. So it might be with Sphero Robots. It might be from Tech Ed. It's something that they might not have otherwise seen until middle school. These things can light them on fire and be the reason that they take off and have excitement about school and about their life, regardless of how they did on a spelling test. That is how I am excited about whole learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott.
All right, thank you. So I think the UA schools should continue to work for all kids, right? That is in our mission statement and in our strategic plan. We must be sure that we have top-notch programs and facilities for our students, and of course, we have gone a long way with the facilities and getting those where they need to be. But then you have to think about the programs behind the facilities or that are in the facilities, and that would be STEM, and that's not new to us, but that is going to be very much more enhanced in the next couple of years because of the high school facility that we have. But we cannot forget about music and drama, visual arts, all of the programs that make up the sports, make up the Upper Arlington schools. We have also worked to provide more student development. For example, this year we started, for the first year, all-day kindergarten, and we're extremely excited about that. That will provide 18 more hours a week for those kindergarten students to work on things like reading and math, and that's pretty exciting. And then we also provided a summer enrichment program. This past year, we are going to do that again this year, this next year, for those students that need help from the pandemic. So I'm really proud, I think, of our educational program that the Upper Arlington Schools provides each student and really every student in our care. So very, very proud to be in the Upper Arlington Schools, and I hope you are too.
Thank you. Nidhi.
So for me, it's important that we recognize the school board sets the tone in our district. And we have a great school board full of wonderful people. For me, it's about what are the skills that we bring to the table. There are 5 members of our school board, and each of those 5 people should have a different skill set, so that when we are looking at our policies, when we're looking at our strategic plan, this next school board will write our next strategic plan. How are we bringing those different skills to life? Because that gives us so many different lenses with which we can support our students. I love the whole learning philosophy in our current strategic plan. The way it engages the students' cognitive, identity, and social emotional development is fantastic. For me, it's about expanding those opportunities. Ooh, all right.
Stand by. Somebody must have leaned against a light switch. If you're up against the wall. There we go. There we go. All right. So we'll wait. What's happening?
So Haunted House.
We have to put a guard over there. All right. So I think she gets another minute left here because it stopped at about a minute. Sorry, I was trying to keep track of that. Go ahead.
I'll wait for the light. All right, I'll just go. So for me, it's about expanding on that. So what are some meaningful service learning opportunities that we can do? Project-based learning opportunities, summer opportunities for our students, collaborations within our community. How can we deepen that learning and make it more realistic? Make it more relevant. Our current students are in Gen Z, and Generation Z loves to make things realistic and applied to their lives. So let's leverage that. Let's leverage that interest and make sure that our schools are supporting that. And the way the school board does that is really through that teaching and learning committee. It's not through the policy because that's more of kind of the day-to-day operations. And so making sure that those opportunities are incorporated into our current curriculum. That's a long-term skill set, long-term view is what I bring to the board through my work in public health. So that's my goal is to keep that work in mind.
Thank you. All right, Lou, you'll have 2 minutes. We'll reset the clock here for 2, and you're good to go.
Okay.
Whoa. Wait. Are we back? All right. Go.
All right. Sorry about that. So I support this. This is something that I've been coaching for about 15 years now. And it's about identifying kids where they are and getting them what they need to be successful in life. It's reaching those kids at the starting point. And you know, my children in particular, we had to fight tooth and nail to get help for those kids, for our kids. We had to go outside the school district to get the services that they need because the school was not really working with us. And this has happened far too often. And so what I love about this is that it's finally trying to address these needs for these kids as early as possible. We need to be more proactive instead of reactive when dealing with children. The earlier we find a dyslexia issue, a reading issue, a learning disability issue in a child, it will change the trajectory of your child academically and socially for the rest of their life. Their whole course on life will be totally different after that. I think it's important to do that, but I think we need to talk to our community about the resources that are going to be needed to do this. It is, as a coach, I coach wrestling at the high school. We have 52 kids. We can't coach and talk and communicate to each kid in the same way. We have to individualize each communication that we have. My son doesn't get pushed really hard by being screamed at. He gets pushed by being talked to. But one of his friends, he gets pushed by being really driven hard. So teaching the whole child, finding out what they need to be successful is important. I support that. We need to do that. But we also have to be honest and provide the teachers with the resources and the time to do this. This takes time, it takes effort, and we can't dump more on our teachers without helping them out.
Great, thank you. So this next question is just oh, sorry, Liz, yes. Sorry, I see you.
So it's interesting. If you look at the strategic plan from 2014 versus the one they made in 2019, the strategic plan in 2014 is all about academics. In 2019, it mentions academics twice. So my goal is really to bring the focus back onto improving our academics. I think we all agree, we've all said the idea of, teaching children where they are. Every student is different. Every student learns differently. I think our schools do a really good job of having different teaching techniques. We have Barrington that has the informal and contemporary. We have Whitcliffe Progressive Elementary School. We have the community school at the high school. We have a lot of great ways to reach our kids where they are, and those are all great things, and I really want to focus on that. Almost 20% of our student body falls under special needs. That can be gifted, that can be, physical disabilities, learning disabilities. That's huge. That should be one of our main priorities. And a goal for that is to making sure that our kids are integrated into the mainstream classrooms, that they're able to participate in sports and activities.
Goodness sake.
These are all really important goals to make sure that each student is receiving the programs, the resources, the tools that they need to be a successful student. Thank you.
Okay, hang on a second. We got to get this figured out because it's not fair to you, the candidates, or the people who are watching, or the folks here in the room. I will say you didn't miss a beat, though, there. The lights went out. You just kept going, so that's good. All right, are we set? We think we're good? Bueller, are we good? Okay. All right. Is it body heat?
So in all seriousness, we've never had this problem with city council. It just must be school board.
Yeah. Any electricians here? All right, we're going to try to do this while they troubleshoot here a little bit. Maybe it's on a schedule that it's not used to and it keeps switching off on its own. I don't know. I'm going to check all the computers. Okay, this next question is a 1-minute question. And here it is. What state and national rankings matter to you, and how do you feel Upper Arlington schools are doing? Scott, you're up.
Well, excuse me, I have spent over 40 years sorting through some of the fuzzy math that the rankings try to focus on, and I cannot tell you how many times as a school leader that they changed those indicators on us. But I think a great way to look, the standard that I like to look at is the one at the education website, education department website, called Prepared for Success. And UA has consistently done great over the last 5 years, usually ranking in the top 10 in the state in that term. So in concrete terms, Prepared for Success component evaluates issues like whether students graduate with honors or whether they need to spend time and money on taking remedial courses in college.
Thank you. Nidhi.
As I talk to people, there are 3 reasons why they seem to care about rankings. The first is they're concerned that we're failing our children. The second is they're worried about their home value. And the third is they're worried about the reputation of the district. When we talk about failing our kids, we're not. When you look at the indicators that indicate success, academic success, we are not failing our students. We talk about home value. Well, I have a couple friends trying to move in Upper Arlington. They cannot find a house. I think our home values are doing just fine right now. And then when we talk about the health of a district, is our district strong and healthy? I look at it from a healthcare perspective because that's my background. We don't call a patient healthy or unhealthy based on one measure, based on BMI alone or blood pressure alone. We look at a whole host of things. And so to focus on just one number, like rankings, and say that the district is failing, to me is a mistake. It is not an indicator of how healthy our district is.
Thank you. Lou?
Our school rankings are key to everything we do. It is a pride of our community. It has been for as long as I've lived here. It has been a pride of our community, and it should continue to be a pride of our community. I have one question for you. If we were ranked number 1 in the state, would they be saying rankings matter? Would they be advertising that rankings matter? Because we're ranked 67th, and they don't want to talk about rankings. They don't think rankings matter now. But if we were in the top 5, if we were the top school in the state, which we should be, I promise you, our school would be promoting the fact that we are the number 1 school district in the state of Ohio. It matters. It matters to your property taxes. The fact that your property taxes went up 3% when maybe it could have gone up 5%, it matters. It does matter. Everybody who moves here, then one of the top reasons they move here is for the schools, and the school rankings and having a successful school system is key. It impacts everything. There's a bunch of different metrics that they use. But on the Ohio Board of Education that deals strictly with academics, we are the 67th ranked school district in the state of Ohio, and that's unacceptable.
All right, so Liz, what state national rankings matter to you, and how do you feel Upper Arlington schools are doing?
So when we talk about the 67th rank, that comes from the Ohio Department of Education website. And there's 6 categories that go into those rankings. Obviously, we don't have time to go through all 6, but reading proficiency by 3rd grade is one, graduation rate, SAT scores, IB, those all, and state testing. And I understand that a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of parents that opt out of state testing, and that's affecting our ranks, and that's 100% accurate. But we are not unique in that. We are not the only school that parents opt out of testing. So I don't believe that that's the whole reason why our rankings have dropped. But when you go from 26 in 2014 to 67th in 2019, before the pandemic, it had nothing to do with the pandemic, that to me shows that we need to be looking at where we're dropping and where the issues are.
Thank you. And Carol?
Thank you. We've been sort of a traveling show and going to all the rotaries, and so I just wanted to rebut a little bit, and I will get to what I do believe we should be focusing on. We've heard about our state rankings. The louder you are, the more Facebook promos you run, the more you repeat a number or talk about the performance index, doesn't mean that it's the most important. What does the PI measure? Single-day tests, English and math, grades 3 through 8, science, grades 5 and 8, and, of course, exams for high school. The end of course exams don't even count for students' grades. The truth is, when it counts, our students are performing better than ever. ACT and SAT scores. 10 years ago, 22% of our graduates did not perform at the remediation-free level. That means extra courses mom and dad have to pay for before the student's allowed to take freshman comp or math. So that's what I would say, remediation-free scores.
All right, thank you. This next question is also a one-minute question, and we'll begin with Needy on this one. As we move past the intense effects of the 2020 pandemic, how will you support the ongoing need to address the varied academic and mental health outcomes of all students resulting from the past 2 years? Needy, go ahead. Sorry. We're going to just go, even though the lights are funky here.
So the varied effects of the pandemic this past year, for me, it's all about every bear forward, right? That's our slogan, supporting every student every step of the way, making sure they get what they need. One of the things that I love about the direction that we're heading in right now, and what makes me excited about this point in time for public education, is that we are finally recognizing that our students are all at different places in their educational journey. Just because they're all in second grade doesn't mean we all have the same understanding. I do believe that as a district we are starting to personalize our education. I would like to see that to be something that is more robust and more permanent. I hear them talking too much about MTSS getting our students caught up. And for me, it's not about getting our students caught up. It's about recognizing that students have always been at different places, and we will always work to meet each and every student.
Thank you. Lou?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. As we move past the intense effects of the 2020 pandemic, how will you support the ongoing need to address the varied academic and mental health outcomes of all students resulting from the past 2 years?
Okay, so a lot of you know that I worked very hard last year to get our kids back in school. And what a lot of you don't know was why. As I mentioned earlier, I coach a lot of kids. We were seeing such dramatic mental health issues with the kids we were coaching on a regular basis that it drove me to that. I did try. I thought it was important for us to be in school. I think it's important for us to address that now. I speak with my wrestlers, and one of them had recommended to me 4 years ago. We should have a trained psychologist in the high school for these kids to talk to, and it'll help them. The beauty thing about mental health today is we're okay talking about it now. When I grew up, nobody wanted to talk about mental health. Now, the more we talk about it, the better. I think everybody understands. I've had issues before. Everybody has had issues where they had to talk to somebody. We should promote that, and we have to understand. Just because our kids, you assume that they come from successful families, doesn't mean they don't have pressure, doesn't mean that they don't have problems at home, and we should have better resources for them at the school so they have somebody to talk to. It's an issue that's very important to me.
Thank you. Liz?
I believe that we're still kind of suffering from the ramifications of COVID. I hear of kids that are being quarantined from exposure, and you have to quarantine for 10 days, and they have literally no support, no way to make up their classes, no way to meet with their teachers. I wish we had done more of a hybrid as opposed to strictly online, because that would open up the ability for a kid who's now quarantined for 10 days to be able to participate in their class. So mental, and I agree with Lou, I think the mental ramifications with some, suicide is 5 times what it was 2 years ago. That's an incredible issue that we need to address. I agree that we need to have counselors and social workers in our schools to help our kids with that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Hi. I have the privilege to sit as a board member on our medical advisory team, and I get to ask these questions like why is quarantine lasting so long, and how have we dealt with this before? For example, when our medical professionals earlier in the pandemic were having to quarantine every time that they were exposed. suddenly there wasn't enough way to take care of everybody because all the medical professionals were on quarantine. And so they came up with a workaround that everyone would only having masks, wearing a mask, but going back to work after being exposed. I am hoping that right now we're getting to a point where that may be something that Franklin County Department of Health can look at as a model.
Thank you. Scott?
All right, well, fairly simply, I guess, the multi-tiered systems of support that was already mentioned, that's taking every child where they are every day, basically, finding out what they need as far as the curriculum that's being taught that day, and then getting them moved in the right direction, and then more success is made. And our staff is all working on that type program now. They started last year, but they're definitely going forward with that. But also, I did mention the summer program, and yes, the kids did suffer from the pandemic, and education suffered as well. And so we do need to supply work for our kids to be able to catch up. And we started this past summer. We're going to have another summer program again for that reason. And then we need to worry about our special education students, and I'll stop because my time's up.
And the lights went out. You guys are doing great, by the way. It's not easy to be distracted, so thank you, and thank you all, too, for your patience out here. All right, question number 4 is a 2-minute question, and we'll begin this one with Lou. In public service, it is critical that decisions not be made based on emotions or personal opinion. Please describe the ways in which you will obtain, evaluate, and implement evidence-based information in order to make decisions that affect the health, safety, and well-being of children and school community members. So 2 minutes. And Lou?
That's a doozy of a question. Well, I'll tell you right now, I have a long history of being a very good listener with people and communicating properly with people. I plan on continuing to do that. But at the same time, you know, I can tell you as a parent of kids in school, it was frustrating last year that it didn't feel like a lot of our voices were being heard. I'm a conservative guy. I didn't see anybody up here speaking the way I felt like it wasn't my voice. And I even asked some of my friends, if you just had somebody up here relaying what you felt, would you have felt a lot better about the way things were going on? And they all agreed, yeah. But instead we moved lockstep and key. But I want to talk about a really important thing here. We were the worst school district when it came to teacher contact last year. Out of all the suburban schools in Central Ohio, we were the only one that had 1 contact per week, per teacher, per student. Every other school district had 4. Dublin had 4. Right now, we still haven't figured out how to teach kids in quarantine. My nephews go to school in Dublin. When you're in quarantine in Dublin, you're zooming into your classroom. Every single day, you continue your education process on a daily basis. Last year, when they were in hybrid, when they were at home, they were zooming into the classroom. The kids were never missing a day of school. They were on a routine. It improves their mental health. It improves their education. But we are still sticking to a plan that didn't work last year, and we want to continue that plan now. Right now, 20 months into this pandemic, we don't know how to teach a kid in quarantine. That is unacceptable. That needs to change. That should be our top priority.
All right, thank you. Liz, you'll have 2 minutes here.
So I very specifically waited until all my kids were out of college. I've always been interested in being on the Board of Education, but I wanted to wait till my kids were gone and I was an empty nester. So I would have the time to really look into things, research things, study things, talk to people, talk to students, talk to teachers, get as much information as I can. I consider myself a very open person, open to different ideas and suggestions from people. If I get elected to the Board of Education, I come as a community member and as a parent. And the whole goal, I think, for all of us up here is to just provide the best education that we can for our kids. And to do that, you have to put in the time. You have to be willing to research things. And, like I said before, that one of my goals is to travel around and look at other schools. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are great schools out there that are doing great things that we could implement in our schools. And like I said, I have the time to really put the work in and be open to different ideas. Thank you.
Carol?
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate that you waited till your kids were out of college. I waited till mine were out of high school for the same reason, that I wanted to focus on the school board rather than being that divided. I wanted to bring up that on the board we have long-term goals, and we have to take in information and all work together to get to that long-term goal. For instance, getting to kindergarten, all-day kindergarten, wasn't an easy plan, and it wasn't something that anybody could have predicted when I got on the board 8 years ago. We didn't have the space. Even when Governor Strickland said, you must have all-day kindergarten, we didn't have the space, and we got a waiver. But that didn't mean that we didn't eventually all want to get to all-day kindergarten. Just to throw in a joke, because I'm so nervous, my husband is a very funny guy, and he would say that the place where the crossing guards from St. Agatha and the crossing guards from Tremont meet is the separation of church and state. And so now our families can have all-day kindergarten, and all the things that I remember about kindergarten, which most important was getting to be the nap fairy, when you got to go around with a wand and touch your friends first who got to get up from nap. They get naps. The work of children is play. They get play. And I think I went far astray from what the question was. But taking in information, we went to Minnetonka in my second year to learn about going one-to-one, but while there, we also looked at an all-day kindergarten that was part of a school district, and, that information was really important to making the decisions that we made today.
All right, so let's reiterate the question then. It is asking you to describe the ways in which you would obtain, evaluate, and implement evidence-based information in order to make decisions that affect the health, safety, and well-being of children and school community members. Scott?
First of all, as a former superintendent, I know my Board of Education would have asked me to do that for them. So you provide the evidence-based information that you want us to know, and we'll go from there. And so that's the first thing I would say that we would do, and we have done in the past, is that we rely on our administrative team, our teaching staff, to tell us what they think is the best and what they that we are seeing in research. But we are also Upper Arlington, and so we have to take a process approach to pretty much all decisions. Carol mentioned all-day kindergarten. It wasn't easy for us to get to that point. And so what do you do when you get this information? Well, you don't just make a quick decision. We've heard from probably everyone in this room at least once. And that is what we will pledge to continue to do. We listen. We don't always make the decisions that you want, but we do listen and we do read. We, as I say, gather evidence through reliable, scientific, and proven facts. We balance all the interests of the things that we hear from our community along with the information that we get from our administrative team. And then we act deliberately and we act in good faith. So, again, may not please everyone, but we do the best we can and we make the best decisions that we possibly can through collaboration between board members, collaboration with our administrative team, and through collaboration with the community and listening. Thank you.
Nidhi?
So I love this question. Evidence-based worlds is where I live. That's where we live in healthcare and public health. So what I think is great about this question is it shows how we can become a leader in the educational space again in order to really become a district of choice, which is what I think our goal should be as a district. It is not about just the science, and as much as I love reporting and news anchors and all of your lovely efforts at getting information out to communities, when you are making an evidence-based decision, it is important that you go to the original source, that you look at the original research papers, that you understand what's happening in those, and then you take that evidence and you tailor it to your community. And that's what personalized medicine is about. That's what personalized education is about. You take that evidence and you say, what will work in our community? And the way you know what works in our community is by understanding our community. And the way we learn and understand what our community values is through communication. And that's why opening lines of communication is such a critical piece of our platform. We don't currently have any opportunity for two-way dialogue, whether that's a town hall meeting or focus groups or other ways for people to really speak and be heard. And so if we don't have those opportunities for communication, we don't have an opportunity to really understand what the community needs, and so then we can't tailor the evidence-based approach to our community. So for me, it's a couple of pieces. It's about going to that the original research, and it's also about understanding our community through communication.
All right, thank you. Our next question is a 2-minute question as well. House Bill 322 and House Bill 327, if passed, will prohibit school districts, community schools, STEM schools, and state agencies from teaching, advocating, or promoting divisive concepts which include nationality, color, ethnicity, race, or sex. All of this taken word for word out of the bill itself. Can you describe the implications of these two bills, and would you support their passage? And Liz, you'll begin this question.
So I think what we're talking about here is what a lot of people are calling critical race theory. The idea that, and everybody has kind of a different idea what that is. The research I've done says that critical race theory is a theory that was developed back in the 1980s at law school that says that the laws that govern our society are inherently racist. And so do I think critical race theory should be taught in our schools? I do not. I don't think that's why we send our kids to schools. There's also a lot of people ask, where do we stand on, teaching about white privilege, all those topics. We have when you break down a school day, you have a very short amount of time to actually teach our kids. I believe we need to be focusing on teaching math and writing and reading and science and history. So to take, elementary school kids and teach them that because you're white, and I had a mother that called me that said her 8-year-old son came home and looked at her and said, am I bad because I'm white? This is not what we should be teaching our kids. It's the parent's responsibility to raise the child. It's the school's responsibility to educate them. So I guess I can't remember if it's for or against the bill, but I am not a proponent of teaching those things in our public schools. Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you. Ohio House Bills 322 and 327 are based on the newly enacted law in Texas with the underlying basis that it's unlawful to teach a student to feel bad about themselves with regard to race or gender. In discussing these bills with the Currents Events Club at the UA Senior Center on Tuesday, September 21st, Charlie Wilson, school board member from Worthington and president of the National School Boards Association, related a story about his education in Kansas. As a student, Charlie learned about the Nazis in World War II. Half of Charlie's family still lived in Germany. Charlie had visited them, had loved them. In learning about his family history, along with the history he was learning in school, he found out that, yes, some of his family members had been Nazis. This was a hard truth. It made him uncomfortable. But his message was, we should never step back from teaching our whole history. Each American generation has the opportunity, through understanding our history, to work to bring our society closer to our American ideals. To add a small bit of context to HB 322 and 327, they're being brought up in the State and Local Government Committee. I would expect a bill that has to do with education to be brought up in the Education Committee. When bills usually come up singly for public comment, the first comment for these two bills was both bills together, and so there was kind of a mishmash. This adds to the confusion about these bills, which affect K-12 for HB 322 and post-secondary HB 327, but are separate bills with separate language. And I am not in favor of these bills, and I am in favor of teaching our whole history. Thank you.
Okay, Scott.
Well, I would have to really dig deep in those, the information contained within those bills to really know whether I would be able to support them or not. I think there's some good information some good thought behind it, but as far as whether I could support it, again, I just really would have to. I would think not. Okay, I guess if I was just really pushed to the limit and said, "What would you do? How would you vote on that?" I guess I'd have to vote no, because it almost seems mean-spirited. I mean, again, I really have to read the brief to be able to understand. But the other, I guess I agree with the other folks. Let's not let this issue divide us. I mean, let's resist attempting to create a controversy where there really isn't any. We must not let the UA schools be used as a pawn, in a culture war to drive a wedge into the community. So critical race theory has no place in Upper Arlington. And if you look at the learning standards that Upper Arlington teachers must follow, it talks about slavery and it talks about racial injustice, and those are part of our American history. But it doesn't adopt critical race theory. And I've got a couple of examples here for you. Race-based slavery in America and how it contributed to colonial economic development. That's the Ohio Standards, page 27. How slavery was a key cause of the Civil War, among many other complex causes. That's an Ohio Standard, page 28. And I'll skip the last one.
Thank you. So just to reiterate before you speak, Mimi, these bills would prohibit teaching, advocating, or promoting divisive concepts which include nationality, color, ethnicity, race, or sex.
To me, House Bills 322 and 327 are anti-public education. The section 3313.6028 is the most disturbing because it implies that our teachers are punishing our students for their beliefs. That is not what's happening. To me, a teaching degree and a teaching license means that you are an expert at taking the truth and framing it in a developmentally appropriate way for our students. Our teachers are the ones who should be deciding how we meet Ohio's learning standards, not our legislators. These bills fail our students in many ways. The two most important ones is, one, they don't get to learn whatever that divisive topic was, which means they will be behind the students from other states who talked about those divisive topics. And two, they fail to learn how to talk about a divisive topic. So the topic itself and how to talk about those things are both missing from our classroom with these bills. CRT we've already talked about, but I would like to also talk about how this relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that lumps into the same idea. DEI has been turned into some kind of political code for teaching our students to walk on eggshells and for teaching our students that their classmates are fragile victims. That is not what diversity, equity, and inclusion are about, and it's important that we continue having these conversations in our classrooms because it empowers our students. It gives them the skills that they need to interact with people who are different from themselves, people who have different experiences, and people who will take different paths in their life. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
Okay, I'm a little older, but I don't think I'm that much older. I was raised with a beautiful saying, right, that we do not judge people by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. That is a phrase I just wrote down because it is burned into my brain. We should not be teaching critical race theory. It's a very simple answer. We should not be teaching critical race theory in our schools. It doesn't belong in K through 12 education. Okay, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be talking with each other and learning about different cultures and different ethnic backgrounds. I'm a Greek son of a Greek immigrant family. My parents both immigrated here from Greece. When I moved up to Arlington, there wasn't a lot of. I know it's odd here because there's so many Greeks that live here now, but there wasn't a lot of Greek families that live here. I know what that's like to show up to school a little bit different. I like to say my lunchbox looked a little bit different than everybody else. I had leftover dinner, and my friend had a ham and cheese sandwich. But that's how we were raised. I'm very happy about that. My friends learned from that. We're a welcoming, warm community. We should be embracing each other's differences and learning from each other. But the problem gets when the school wants to start teaching morality. That's a rocky road to get down, and it's also a distraction from what they should be doing. My family teaches I teach my children how to be a proper person, and they answer to me. I answered to my mom. Matter of fact, I had to answer to my mom quite a few times. But I said we need to celebrate each other's differences. I don't find critical race theory as a way to celebrate differences, but instead drive a wedge between people. That is not what this community needs. And so I've lived here long enough to know it's a very welcoming community. We welcome everybody. It's a great community. Let's celebrate that. Let's learn from each other and celebrate our differences and teach our kids math, science, English, and history.
Thank you. All right, this will be our last question, and this will be a 1-minute question. We're going to start with Carol for this one, and the question is, please identify 2 positive decisions and direction the school board has recently taken, and identify how you will support them.
Well, sitting on this school board, 2 positive decisions that we've recently made have been to start school in person and to move forward with the choice of having masking in the school. We started with wearing masks K through 8 with the thought that the older kids were vaccinated and would have less incidence of disease. And then we found that what was happening was that family members were the main transmission. And so we followed up with having masks pre-K through 12. So both of those decisions were made at that time, and I am proud to be a part of those decisions.
Okay, now you have 1 minute to identify 2 decisions and directions that the school board has made that you do not support or did not support, and how you will address these.
Okay. I just told you 2 that I support. I didn't tell you that I did not support having. I was on the losing side, as it were, of our first decision to have masks going all. I wanted masks going all the way through 12th grade, and while we are a board of 5, and some people would really rather have us in fisticuffs, or at least showing some differences. Our style on the board has been to find out where there is connection and move forward with that. I also did not want us to go back to school before spring break, which was different from what we had originally informed our parents about. But when you are on a board of 5, whether you are on 1 against 4 or 2 against 3, you own 100% the decision that the majority makes, and that is why I gave the answer I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, 1 minute for a couple of decisions that you support.
I'm glad you sat where you did.
You know it.
So, two things I'm proud of. All-day kindergarten, obviously, when I was superintendent again, back in Groveport, Madison, and many years ago, we provided all-day kindergarten for our kids. We really had to work hard to get that, and it was a game changer. I pushed for that, as Carol did. Very proud of that. Real hopeful for the programs. That program will get our kids really jump-started literacy and a lot of other ways. The other thing I think I'm proud of is the fact that we picked a medical advisory team early on during COVID, and they are unbelievably stellar individuals. Every one of them are experts in their fields. They're not all the same field, and I think they are. That was a really, really wise decision. Now, the things that I was not necessarily in support of. And I will say, in the last 4 years, nothing. And the reason why I say that is because, again, when I was superintendent, I worked with my Board of Education. I had some bellwether board members, right, that I would go to with all my ideas. And not all of them were great, according to them. And so I would bring an idea or two to a board member or another board member, and I would discuss that. And if, in fact, I couldn't support it completely with the questions and the concerns that a board member had, it never got to a vote. And so people, I think, concern themselves sometimes. They ask me, why does it look like your Board of Education, is always a 5-0 vote? Or why? Well, first of all, it's a consent agenda. And so anything that isn't already in consent doesn't get voted on that night. And, people, it never bubbles up to to a vote if it isn't supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nidhi.
All right, so 2 things that I am in favor of. I love that we hired an executive director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I love that he reports directly to our superintendent. The reason I love it is because inclusion benefits every child. There are so many horror stories that I've heard this summer about neurodiverse students and students with disabilities experiencing some pretty negative things in our schools. And I went to a conference this summer where the superintendent of Miami-Dade from Florida said, our differences are precious and our similarities are infinite. And that to me is the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is about recognizing our differences are precious, and inclusion is about recognizing that our similarities are infinite. And the way I would support that is making sure the community understands DEI and supporting his work. And the second thing is about mental health. I love that we are focusing on mental health. And there are so many curriculums out there that can help us make sure that our students have the skills needed to handle the ups and downs of life.
Okay, and 2 decisions you disagree with.
So 2 things I disagree with is our approach to communication with our community. Currently, the way that the community is able to share their concerns with our board is pretty one-sided. It's an email or it's a comment at public participation. And that does not allow for 2-way dialogue. And if you don't have 2-way dialogue and you don't have people responding to you and showing that they understand your message, then you don't feel heard. And when you don't feel heard, you find a way to elevate your voice. And that to me is why we had what I would call frivolous lawsuits this past school year, because people were not feeling heard. And so we need to get back to communicating with our community and making sure that we're having 2-way conversation. The second was the way we approached Online Academy. My friend and I started an Online Academy support group because our families were not being supported through that experience. And there was also not a long-term view for how we can grow as a district. Instead of spending the money on a one-time platform, I would have spent it on teaching our teachers how to teach remotely and making sure we're working with them and giving them the skills to grow the way we reach our students in the future.
Thank you. Lou?
Well, I agreed with the school board on July 22nd, 2020, when they voted to provide an in-school option for kids in the summer of 2020. And I agreed with the school board in February of 21 when they voted to provide an in-school option for children. But on a whole level, they make a lot of decisions that we all support. But on some really key ones, I don't support. I can go right into the ones I don't support. I don't support a week later dropping that we are going to effectively close the school completely without communicating with the school, with the parents. I mean, if you all remember, we got an email at 5 p.m. for a 6 p.m. board meeting that school was closed, going online only. I also don't agree with the way the school board handled the bathroom situation in our schools. This is not a comment on whether or not I'm for or against it. This was about the process of how it was done. The way they did it drove a direct wedge into our community. I spoke to the superintendent up in Stamford, Connecticut. She actually came from Columbus City Schools. She's friends with a friend of mine who was the superintendent at Reynoldsburg City Schools. I talked to her and I said, what would you have guys done? By the way, similar demographic, upper middle class community. She said, we didn't build all new high schools, Lou, but we built a middle school. And the federal government was giving money to build all gender bathrooms. We had hearings, talks with our community. We wanted feedback. The feedback came in and we moved in a direction. That is not what happened in our community. And because of the way they did it, it drove a wedge in our community, and we're still paying for that wedge right now. And our school's paying for it to the tune of $220,000 in legal fees to date.
Thank you. And Liz?
I'm going to be quick. The things I agree with are easy, all-day kindergarten. Scott, I totally agree with you. I think that's a fantastic thing to have in our schools. And I also, the in-person, when we finally decided to come back into person this year, I completely agree with that. The things I don't agree with, I don't agree with how we're handling our quarantines. It's a convoluted way that this is happening. We're quarantining kids for 10 days without any resources. There's so many better ways that we could doing this. You know, apparently we have access to unlimited testing, so we're literally quarantining kids who have zero symptoms. So why can't they come in every morning, take a test, take their temperature? If it's negative, they get to go to school. So I do disagree with that. And I also wish that we had done more of a hybrid instead of completely canceling school. There were so many other districts that did, you know, kids were in school for 2 days a week and then online for 2 days a week. And that would have helped us establish handling the quarantine when the kids are in quarantine a little bit better. So, thank you.
All right. Finally here, before we let you go, we're going to ask each one of you to give a 1-minute closing statement highlighting your unique qualifications for the school board. And we'll begin this one with Scott.
All right. So, briefly, a track record and a passion for public education. I've worked many different positions, from teacher to superintendent. I have a background in the business of education and a working knowledge of curriculum, testing, and administrative accountability. But most importantly, I have a passion for public education and a real desire to see kids live, learn, and grow in the Upper Arlington schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Nidhi.
With courageous leadership, we can take the pandemic lessons and we can usher in a really exciting chapter for our district. The skills that I bring is a focus on our future to make sure that we are respecting our legacy and make sure that the efforts that we are putting in today are really building our capacity as a district to meet each and every student's need in the future. This is not an easy job, but it is a job that is worth it. And while I am not an empty nester, I still have time for this. I'm asking you to vote for me because I think we can be civil again. We can bring back this community together. We can bring us back together. We can support each and every student, always and forever. And we can make Upper Arlington the district of choice, not only in Central Ohio, but in the nation. I believe we can do this. Thank you.
And Lou?
I have some pamphlets out there. There's not a lot of people who've done more for the kids in our community than I have. I've worked diligently for the kids in our community. I've worked hard, and I pour my heart and soul into it. I need to take and I want you to come on my website and look at my plan for the future of this school. I have a plan laid out there, but I need to take this minute. I've got to ask our community to help one of my kids that needs some help. And I asked my wife if I should do this. And Kurt, I hope you're listening, because I think it'd be great if you could help. One of my former players that I coached for 3 years just had a horrendous accident out at Yellowstone National Park. Her family's from Delaware, Ohio. Her father is a heating and air conditioning guy, and he flew out to Seattle to drive her back here. They stopped at Yellowstone National Park to go to the hot springs. She had a dog with her. The dog got sprayed by the hot spring. The dog ran into the hot spring. She jumped into the hot spring to save the dog. Her father pulled her out. He's got third-degree burns. She's got 90% of her body is third-degree and second-degree burn. She's going to be in ICU at Idaho Falls Medical Center for the next 4 months. Their life is in Columbus. And their child and the only breadwinner are sitting in a hospital in Idaho. And this family has to now find a way to get together. We flew her out there. The mother's out there with them. But they're going to be suffering through so much economic distress and so much misery and pain just trying to fight through this, that if you could go on my personal website, not my school board website, if you could go on my personal website and get on there, there is a GoFundMe page to help this family out. They do not have the money to handle what is going to be months, if not years, of travel to help the girl right now is battling through, but it is a long haul. And if you could, this community is a great, loving community. I keep saying it. If you could please go to my personal Facebook page and support this family in any way, shape, or form, I would greatly appreciate it. They're struggling right now.
Thank you. Reach out to me, and I'll see what we can do. Liz?
Thanks for sharing that, Lou. I'm sorry to hear that. I believe I'm qualified. I have a degree in education. I'm a former teacher. I had 3 kids that went through. I have literally volunteered in every possible way that you can in our schools. I have a huge passion for education. It's so important. It's so critical for the future of our kids. And I just want to end by saying I completely agree with what Needy says. We have got to come together as a community. We have got to be supporting each other, building each other up. We have to stop with the hatred. And whoever gets elected on the Board of Education, whoever gets selected on the City Council, we need to support them, whether you voted for them or not, whether you agree with their ideas or not. We have to. We are one community. We are Upper Arlington. We should be supporting each other, being respectful to each other, and we have to stop the hate. Thank you.
And finally, Carol.
Thank you, Kurt, and thank you to the community. I want you to know that 8 years has been a great learning experience, and I have gotten to work with board members that brought me up along the way, and I really appreciate their mentorship. And it is a hard thing to join a board and get your feet under you. I think that 8 years is not enough for me to really do everything that I would like to do to support our kids, to continue to make the opportunities for STEM, to make the opportunities for the arts, and for all of the collaborations that's going to happen in all of our new spaces. I would like to ask you for your vote for me and for Scott McKenzie to serve again. It is the high point of my life serving this district, and I would very much appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your commitment to the children of UA, and good luck to all of you. Thank you. We're going to take about a 2-minute intermission here to bring up the city council members. So we'll switch seats here. Okay, if we can have your attention, everyone else in the audience, have a seat, and we'll continue with the questions here. So we're going to begin with 1-minute opening remarks from the city council candidates. We're just going to go in order of how you're sitting up there on the dais. It was originally going to be alphabetical, and some things got turned around, and it's just a little bit easier for me as I'm moderating to be able to look up and keep track of who's who. So if you don't mind, we're going to just start with Kathy.
Thank you.
Green light.
The green light is,
Yep, there you go. You might have to put your mouth right up there close. Sorry.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Leadership UA. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Kathy Adams, and I am running for Upper Arlington City Council because I am passionate about this community. I'm from Upper Arlington. I went to high school here. I am raising my children here, and I want to work to make Upper Arlington welcoming and have everyone feel welcomed and served in every stage of their life. In my job, I work as a lawyer for the state of Ohio in the finance section of my office, and I am a fiscal watchdog of state taxpayer funds, and I take that very seriously. I believe in a life of public service, and I have been with the state for over 15 years. I work on large, complex development and construction projects, and I think I have a relevant skill set for all the development going on in the city right now. I'm passionate about Upper Arlington, and I would love to earn your vote. Thank you.
Yeah, that time goes fast. So, but you did great. Yukimi.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. About 3 years ago, I was on that, sitting in the audience here with Leadership UA, so it's kind of surreal to be up here. My name is Yukemi Awakasinjita. Towards the end of this, Kurt, you will zone in on that.
Got it.
It is the biggest single thing that I'm teaching along the campaign trails. How do you say that name? Yukemi. And I am running for Upper Arlington City Council to bring innovative thinking and fresh perspective to our local leadership. Now, Upper Arlington is my community of choice. It is the place I am proud to raise my children and the place where I want to make a difference. Central Ohio is the fastest growing region in the state. I'm part of that growth, and in order to attract and retain the growth, we need visionary leadership to create the sense of place that Upper Arlington is going to be 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when my daughter, who this is the only place she has known as home, can say, "Mom, I'm coming home." Now, I am uniquely qualified to bring that visionary leadership here to Upper Arlington. I started my career as an engineer while serving as a project lead on waste projects. I earned my MBA.
Thank you.
I missed that.
I told you it goes fast.
It does go
fast. The yellow's about 10 seconds and then it goes red.
I look forward to digging in more on my experiences.
You'll have time here later. Stacy.
Hi, thank you for this. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight and talk a little bit about my reason for running. So really, my name is Stacy McIntyre, and I'm running for Upper Arlington City Council. Upper Arlington is a wonderful community, and we're living in a very exciting time here. I believe we need strong leadership who's committed to this community and has a vision for the future. So I bring nearly 20 years of business management and consulting experience focused on customer experience, strategy development, and process improvement. What I think that means for the city is making sure that we're engaging our residents, that we develop a plan for the future, and that we're continuously looking at how to most effectively and efficiently use our tax dollars. I'm committed to this community due to the volunteer efforts I've had since I moved back over 10 years ago, So I hope to share more about that, and I hope to earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Great, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for my wife sitting in the front row. Normally Monday nights I'm on my own, so it's great to be here. I am Brian Close. I'm currently your city council member. I'm running for re-election because I want to finish the work that we had started. So I ran 4 years ago. We were coming off a recall election, right? There was a little bit of loss of voting. The everyday people of my neighborhood were losing trust in the government. And I felt it was my calling to come back. My father was a judge. He was a mayor of the municipality I grew up in. And I felt it was my calling to run. Over the last 4 years, we've focused on infrastructure. We've brought the infrastructure back to a level that we need to maintain going forward to have the foundation of this community work. We focused on reasonable development of our commercial areas to make sure we have the revenue to provide the services that our residents expect without raising tax dollars. We've worked on sensible guidelines for our community for 2018 and 19 to make sure that the community and the housing standards are set to work through commercial guidelines. And so I'm sad line that up. I'm Brian Close, Memphis City Council. I appreciate your support on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight and for watching online. I'm Michelle Hoyle, and I'm asking for your vote to re-elect me to Upper Arlington City Council. In my first 4 years on City Council, I focused on sound money management. I've used my nearly 35 years of municipal finance experience to help safeguard Upper Arlington's finances. And we've come through a pandemic stronger than before, so well that we can build and operate a community center without raising any of our taxes. I believe we need a city council that values our past, celebrates what we've become, and has a vision for what we can be in the future. Upper Arlington's my home. I grew up here, I raised my family here, and I plan to grow old here. I want to leave this city better than I found it, so that other families can all see Upper Arlington as the best place to live through all stages of their lives. And if re-elected, I will continue to work and take what's good about our city and make it even better. I'm Michelle Hoyle, and I ask for one of your 4 votes either during early voting or on November 2nd. That was hard to say in 60 seconds.
You did great. We'll see if Jim can do that.
I'm Jim Lynch, and it's been my honor and privilege to serve you over the last 4 years in City Council. I sat here 4 years ago at this forum, and we talked about our upcoming centennial celebration and steps we're going to take to strengthen our community for the next 100 years. And we should all be very proud that we're off to a great start. Soon, we're going to have a new community center at Kingsdale, and we've already said goodbye to that big blue box. We have a global headquarters moving into the old CompuServe site off Henderson Road, which had been hung up for a long, long time. We're making improvements to our entrance on Lane Avenue with the Gateway complex and new standards for all of the Gateway development. We're finishing development across from the shops at Lane Avenue. We just opened up some new senior housing at First Community Village. But something I'm just as proud of is my work to improve the way the city speaks, and most importantly, the way the city listens to its residents. That's been a key priority. I ran 4 years ago to bring more transparency, communications, civic engagement. We're enjoying some of the fruits of that tonight with people watching on the internet, which we didn't have before, and I'd be honored for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Andre.
Good evening. My name is Andre Rota, and I'd like to thank Leadership UA for hosting this event and Kurt for facilitating. I retired from the OSU Wexner Medical Center 2 years ago, and I'm currently a professor emeritus there. I lived in Upper Arlington for 28 years. I have extensive leadership experience. I directed a long-term research program funded by the NIH. I was an associate director of the OSU Mathematical Biosciences Institute, funded by the National Science Foundation. I chaired an NIH grant review committee, which was responsible for funding biomedical research programs throughout the U.S. I was also a council member at the Association of American Medical Colleges, which formulates policies for medical education, research, and practice in the U.S. and Canada. If elected to City Council, my priority would be sustainability and climate change. I have 2 granddaughters whom I want to live in a nice world.
Very good. Thank you. All right, time for the question and answers. Same drill as before. You will have up to 2 minutes to respond, You don't have to use all of the time as before. So, question 1 is, if elected, you'll be leading this community during a critical time of change, growth, development, and redevelopment. How will you collaborate and communicate with all stakeholders while balancing competing priorities, including walkability, connectivity, and neighborhood compatibility? And we'll begin with Ukemi. Did I get it?
Awesome. You're spot on now. Well, thank you. Upper Arlington has, as a landlocked, fully developed community, we have our own unique set of challenges and opportunity. And so, in my experience, working as an innovation attorney, where I'm always working in an imagined future, that requires collaboration, that understands, for those that are in the business world, our SWOT analysis. What is our strengths? What are our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? So while we take best practices in what has been done with other communities, those communities do not have our own set of challenges. And it requires creativity to think about what our competitive advantage is going to be. The question is spot on. We are at a unique time now in Upper Arlington where all the development is happening now. That requires broad civic engagement and not just using the same tools that we have used to get that engagement. Not everyone can make a session.
Keep going. You get another minute. It's a 2-minute question.
Okay. I was like, did I miss the clock again? Not everyone can attend a session like this, and so how we collect information, reaching people where they're at and reaching them in different ways is important to hear those voices. And when we do the development, let's do it right the first time, right? And that means because we are landlocked, fully developed, we don't have the opportunity to add on. We don't have the opportunity to miss that goal. So it has to be sustainable. It has to be developed for a longer term range than what another community like New Albany has, which is more land and can add on to that project later on. And with my skill sets on collaborating, finding those opportunities, it means that we still deliver that project on time, on budget, efficiently, but with creativity. And that's the next level here for Upper Arlington, bridging our legacy with our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy, 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I agree. I think we're in a very exciting time, and that's why. Thank you. I think we're in a very exciting time in UA, and that's why I think we need to step back and revisit our master plan. Our master plan was developed in 2001 and updated in 2013. I want to make sure that we have a strategy in place that is updated and is based on what's happening today. We have a lot going on as far as population growth expected in Central Ohio, the OSU development on Lane and Kenny, obviously our community center, other redevelopment within UA. We have a metro park going on the other side of our city. So I believe we need to revisit our master plan and revisit the master planning process by engaging our residents. And so I think we can start by engaging our residents early in that process and throughout the process. We need to meet residents where they are, so in their neighborhoods, in the parks, in the libraries. And then also making sure that we're following up with residents as far as how decisions have been made. When decisions are made, what decisions are made, making sure that we then talk about the rationale for making those decisions and following up with residents who still have questions.
Great. Brian.
Great, thank you. So I think our primary job on City Council is to ensure that what we're doing reflects the values of our community, both now and in the future. So anything that we're doing, we do need to generate that resident feedback. You know, over the last 4 years on City Council, I think that's the thing that we were most proud of. You know, we're coming out of a recall, and we've listened to residents for 4 years, and we've come to build a community center with an 80% supported vote. And so we've learned and we've shown over the last 4 years that what it takes in order to make this community great, in order to make this community better, is that we have to listen to our residents. We are just one of you. We are reflective of you, but we are just one of you. So we don't know what's best for the community on our own. We need to listen. We hear the feedback. We can understand issues of where we don't live and where we do live, and we're able to work off of that when we all work together. So it's our job to make sure that we reflect those values and that we move forward and that our community is reflective of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thank you. So obviously, I think one thing that brought up, which is right on, is that we need to be revisiting our master plan and making sure that the master plan reflects the UA of today and looks at 10 years in the future, 15 years in the future. And I think one of the challenges we're going to face, I see two challenges we're going to face. One is that we have to balance the needs of our older residents, because I think this community still has a very proud and long-time legacy of making sure this is a very safe and welcoming place for seniors. And I think we also have to recognize that we have a lot of new families coming in, which I want to make sure that they feel like they are also part of the process. So, as somebody said earlier, meeting people where they are, I think we need to look at where we can best get the information that allows us to balance the needs of the people who are here, who created our legacy, as well as those who are coming in, who are going to be the next generation of our legacy. And I think you mentioned something about transportation and connectivity in that lengthy, long, winding question. I just want to say that that is one of the things, as I'm out knocking on doors, that I hear the most concern about. We are redeveloping and redeveloping quickly, and I think that one of the things that we are going to have to face in the next 3, 5, 7 years is how we continue to make this place walkable and friendly, and to make sure we don't become clogged with traffic and concerns with parking. And how we do that is start looking right away at what are our options for circulators and mass transit and things like that, that perhaps have not been as important in Upper Arlington, will begin to be more important, both to serve our seniors as well as to provide us with not having situations with traffic and parking as we redevelop our community. Thank you.
So, Jim, how will you collaborate and communicate with all stakeholders while balancing competing priorities, including walkability, connectivity, and neighborhood compatibility?
Well, improving communication has been one of my top concerns, and we're doing a much better job of getting citizen engagement, being more transparent, and involving the public in discussions. When we have something that's a big concern, we slow the process down to make sure we can get more input. But here's the thing. While we're seeing a lot of people move into Upper Arlington, make no mistake, we are still in competition with other communities, and these are important issues that we have to address and that we have to get right. For those of you out there who care about sustainability like we all do, you'd be proud to know that our sustainability efforts were just recently held up as models by Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission and the Ohio EPA. Our 2013 master plan dealt with sustainability. And I have to tell you, other communities across the city emulated what was in our master plan. And so I think we're doing a very good job from a sustainability standpoint. You talked a little bit about connectivity. I just want to address that. It's been a big priority for council to improve sidewalks. We invested $3.5 million to put sidewalks in from Fishinger to Zollinger and Mount View. We've changed our sidewalk process to make it easier for neighborhoods to trigger change, and we're putting up 50% of those costs so that we can improve that connectivity. And you also mentioned neighborhood compatibility, and that is a very, very challenging issue. We knew there was a problem. We looked into it a few years ago. We passed some new standards for neighborhood compatibility. We're going to fine-tune those a little bit this fall because we know there's a little bit more we can do on that. But that's a tough issue, and we're really trying to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre.
Okay, we certainly face a challenge being a landlocked community. I think that the only large spaces that are yet unoccupied are the OSU Golf Course and the Scioto Country Club, and I'm pretty sure that most of our residents would not want those places filled with houses. I think that the challenge that Upper Arlington has is that it's the neighbor of OSU. For the last 30 years that I've lived in this area, the West Campus of OSU was relatively unoccupied. This is changing now. OSU is building a huge medical complex and research complex right up to the doors of Upper Arlington. This will involve not only more traffic, but also more residents wanting to live here. And they will be the physicians and the staff that works in the hospitals. We have to look at development that would absorb these people rather than make them commuters who just simply pass through Upper Arlington on their way to Hilliard or Dublin. So we need to make this community a very attractive one. Previously, when in my earlier stage as a faculty member in Orange County, California, I lived in Irvine, which was a purpose-built community centered around bike paths, walkways, and so on. So we have to essentially try to reimagine our space in order to do something similar, even though we have more difficult challenges than a new community. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy.
So I work as a lawyer for the state of Ohio, and the whole state is my client, and I represent all of the citizens. And I take that very seriously. I have been with the state for 15 years, and I have to listen to stakeholders. That's all of the citizens. I work on large construction and development projects for my state clients, including the public colleges and universities, and these are complex transactions worth tens of millions of dollars. And that is why I'm running now, because I think it's really important that we get our economic development right. This development is all going on right now, and I have the experience to make sure that we're protecting our taxpayer funds, that we are doing the right thing for that economic development. When I have been talking to citizens, this is a common concern that has been raised, and people are not clear on what do we want the Upper Arlington brand to look like? What do we want the look and feel of our community to be? And I think we need to be very strategic in those decisions and have a lot of community input, because the community doesn't feel like that is happening right now. And I have the skill set to oversee that economic development and make sure that we're getting it right.
Great, thank you. All right, time for a new question here. This will be a 2-minute question that will start with Stacy. In 2020, Upper Arlington declared racism a public health crisis and appointed 9 people to a community relations committee to promote understanding, mutual respect, and a sense of belonging. Do you support this, and how do you plan to support these efforts moving forward?
Sometime I'm going to get that. So I want UA to be a welcoming place for anyone who lives, works, or visits. I'm proud of our, enhanced awareness and importance that we and value that we have for diversity. I'm excited about the Community Relations Committee, and I will absolutely support the Community Relations Committee. I think this is a great opportunity for our community to have input into what we want to be and what we want to look like. I think we also need to celebrate the progress that we have made. We have made progress as far as diversity, and that should be celebrated. Not that we should stop there, we should keep pushing on, but absolutely that should be celebrated. I have nearly 20 years of business management and consulting experience, so really I believe we need to step back and understand the problem we're trying to solve and clearly define that, so we can then take calculated steps towards solutions. So I think making sure that we're understanding the problem that we have or that we want to solve, and take calculated steps to make sure that we're doing that. But I believe that Arlington, I think Arlington is a welcoming place, and I think there's opportunity for Arlington to be an even more welcoming place.
Okay, Brian.
Great, thanks. So I was a part of that city council in 2019 that engaged the consultant to conduct the public survey, had the workshops to address the diversity, equity, inclusion in the city, and from that consultant and in response to that outreach, I was on the council that established that Community Relations Committee in 2020. So yes, I support the work. This is a hard issue, right? What the Community Relations Committee is doing, it's not easy, and that's why we created this committee. We put our best and brightest on that committee to help find answers, because we as council, it was something that we did not have all the expertise that we needed to do. So we're working with the community. We will support it. It's a relatively new committee, but we expect them to look at the programs and activities to make Upper Arlington more welcoming, to promote a self of belonging in Upper Arlington, and to be able to connect all these various organizations that we have to be able to reach all of our residents.
I said it before, and the committee is going to be, we're going to support the committee, but the committee also has to reach out, just like council has for the last 4 years, to the rest of the community to figure it out. Because again, 7 members on council, we appoint a committee to run this. That committee also has to reach out and be engaged into the community to figure out what are the problems individually, because the individual members on the committee might have a perspective of it, but there are also other individuals in the community that have another perspective. We need to gain that insight and figure out how Upper Arlington can become better, because we are a great community, but we can become better, but we can only do that by listening and working with committees such as the Community Relations Committee. Thank you.
Michelle?
So this is something for which I am very proud, and there's someone sitting in the audience who I think remembers the very first time we talked in her dining room about why we need to do something like this in this community. I supported the creation of the committee. As a member of council, I was also part of the council working group that worked with community members to determine what the makeup of the committee would be and how they would go forward with their charge. I'm committed to see this. I'm committed to seeing this committee be successful. This committee was deliberately and carefully constructed to make sure that we had many points of view, many people who represented voices in the community. But I also think that one of the challenges, and I think Brian led to this or mentioned this, is we're asking that community to be our eyes and ears out there so that we can learn how we can be more welcoming, more open, a better place for people who want to move here, who want to live here. So I am very supportive, and I'm very excited to hear what comes forward from this committee as they deliberate and learn more about what can make Upper Arlington the kind of place that we all know it can be. So I can't wait to hear what they have to say, and then we'll move forward as we go into 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Kurt, I might be able to save you some time on this, because I remember the afternoon at Crimson Cup when I was with 2 people here in the audience, and we talked about this idea, and I said, I'll help you champion this. We'll get this done. And we got it done. Because the fact of the matter is, I agree, Arlington's a welcoming place, but we can always do a better job of becoming more welcoming. It's a lot of multi-generational families here. Sometimes it's not the easiest place to move into for some, but we knew that we needed to do a better job. And listen, we're proud that we're attracting so many new residents to our community, and we're kind of determined to strengthen those efforts so that all citizens here feel connected, supported, and valued. So we talked a little bit earlier about the region growing, and the region is growing here. And as we are in competition with other communities, job creators and residents, they want to find a community that fosters a culture of inclusion. And that's what we think they can find that right here in Upper Arlington.
Thank you. Andre, I'll repeat the question here. In 2020, UA declared racism a public health crisis, appointed 9 residents to a community relations committee to promote understanding, mutual respect, and a sense of belonging. How do you plan to support these efforts moving forward?
Yes, I fully support making Upper Arlington a more diverse community. We have to remember what the history of Upper Arlington was. Essentially, when it was founded in 1918, I think certain ethnic groups, African Americans, and certain religious groups, the Jews, were essentially excluded from living here. So this has kind of set a certain path that we should not follow anymore. Fortunately enough, these laws that barred various groups from living in this community have been changed, and they are no longer applicable. I think that the change probably has to start at the top. In order to attract a more diverse population, I think we have to project a face to the community that shows that we are a diverse community. That is that our council, our city, and our commissions have to include more women, more ethnic minorities, and of people of different persuasions. So I think that this election will be very important to show in which direction Upper Arlington wants to move. And I hope that this would then lead to an increased diversification in the city itself. I think we need a police department that is somewhat more diverse, the fire department, and also city staff. And we need to support such future hirings with help in terms of accommodation and housing in this community.
Great, thank you. Okay, Kathy.
I am a supporter of the Community Relations Committee, and I believe that they should have input on every part of city government. I have done my own work to promote inclusivity in Upper Arlington. I co-created a group called Rainbow UA, and we organized the first Pride here and asked the city to fly the Pride flag, and I think that representation and inclusivity are very important. I think that inclusivity should be part of every policy for the city, including hiring and purchasing and economic development. We have those kind of policies at the state, and at the state level, I represent everybody. I represent all of the citizens of the state, and I think it's the same for the city. And I think that we should have input from the Community Relations Committee on all the aspects of running the city.
Okay, great. McKemmy.
Thank you. Brian, I think you gave the best endorsement here by saying you picked the best and brightest for the Community Relations Committee, because I happen to serve on the Community Relations Committee right now. And naturally, I fully support the Community Relations Committee, and that's why I applied and wanted to be on there. Listen, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only is it do we want to attract and retain that, given that we are a community that was built on exclusion, it's also an imperative. 1 in 4 people in the United States by 2035 are going to be Hispanic, right? The 2020 census shows that Central Ohio is growing, but not only growing, it's changing in demographic makeup. So to continue to remain a community of choice, it is not just a flavor or saying that we have to attract. It is an imperative, because that is the economic power that walks away from this community, that doesn't spend money in this community. And as a business person, we need to figure out how we become that. So for our council, they are very fully supportive. This is a new committee. We're still working on that feedback loop. I think there are opportunities there to leverage that citizen group for more. So some of the things Kathy was talking about, some of our policies as it relates to purchasing, some of our policies as it relates to employment, we can start there. And then we can look at other things as well. But rather than the Community Relations Committee always coming to City Council with what we're hearing, the City Council can also share with the Community Relations Committee, hey, take a look at this issue for us. The anti-discrim policy was a big miss for our City Council. That never came to the Community Relations Committee. And things like that we should have a circular feedback loop so that we're truly working hand in hand to make that imperative come to fruition. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to our next question. And Brian, you'll start this round with 1 minute for your answer. Upper Arlington strives to be at the forefront of environmentally and sustainability appropriate practices with the goal of achieving zero waste, zero pollution, and zero emissions by 2030. How do you plan to address sustainability issues that are critical to our local ecosystem?
Thanks, Kurt. Great question. So again, on Upper Arlington City Council, this is something that's coming before us here in the next few weeks. We've taken a lot of steps as a city council. We've looked in every way that you can try to be more sustainable or more environmentally friendly. So, we're building a new community center, which we're all very proud of. We're looking at making that LEED certified. Every new commercial office building that we've built since 2007 has been LEED certified as well. So we're always looking for ways to do it. We're looking for solar powers over some of our city buildings as to see whether that would make sense. But all these decisions are hard. We always have to balance whether the environmental responsibilities that we have and weigh them with some of the costs associated with them, right? We have to balance that issue to say, okay, how does this make sense financially and what's the impact on the community? And try to find that sweet spot, right? That's always a hard thing that we have on city council, whether it be anything we're doing, whether it being housing or community development. It's always trying to find that sweet spot. And sustainability, environmental is an issue that we have to find that sweet spot. But we've worked hard. You can look on our website, sustainability on our website, and see all the things that we've done, all the awards that we've done. We've given our staff the latitude. We sit on all boards through our staff to make sure that they're tied into all the new and innovative ways that we can, as a community, can do more. So I support these efforts, and I'll continue to support them on City Council for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
So I always say if it's in the budget, it's going to get done. And one of the things that is in our budget document under our council goals is what you just read, which is zero waste, et cetera, by 2030. And how we're doing this is we have advanced our transition to LED lighting, which saves energy. We have directed the designers of the community center to be looking at various ways, things like, could we have a green roof? Could we recycle the gray water that is utilized in a community center such that water is used at least twice before it goes into the stormwater or sanitary system? The other things that I honestly find very important are we sit between two rivers. We are in the middle of one of the fresh water that is the sustenance of our whole region. So I think we need to go a little bit further in terms of looking at things like, are we using the best products when we treat our roads, when we do all the things that we do that are so important to us, but that potentially add chemicals into our groundwater. So those are all things I think we can do in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Jim?
Having worked early in my career for more than 10 years at the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and then spending a number of years working closely with the Environmental Protection Agency here in the state, I have a pretty deep understanding of conservation and sustainability issues. And I think you should all feel proud of the fact that this is a very sustainable community, and we've been recognized kind of as a leader in Central Ohio. We received the Platinum Level award from the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Ohio EPA recently recognized us at their Encouraging Environmental Excellence Awards just very, very recently. Why is that happening? Because we're always looking for more that we can do from a sustainability standpoint. We've been transitioning some of our fleet to electric. We have first ever electric charging stations. We're changing our signals and traffic lights to LED. We've created a residential food waste program. And there's more that we can do. We're going to make sure that our new community center would be able to be certified under LEED technologies and standards. And this is an important issue to a lot of people, and I think it's important to your city government. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Andre?
Yes, I'm very impressed by what the council has done so far, and I'm grateful for the initiatives that they have taken. I certainly would hold them to the plan of reducing our carbon footprint in the near future in 2030. And in order to do that, I think we not only have to look at what Upper Arlington is doing, but also to look at our neighbors and how they deal with the environmental concerns. Certainly the city of Columbus has made tremendous progress. They have introduced an energy aggregation plan, which will provide a lot of green energy to the city. Upper Arlington is doing some of that. I think we are getting energy from wind power, which is great. But again, I think one of the challenges that we have is our neighbor. OSU has just built a CHP plant, campus heating and power plant, that is going to cause some pollution. This is in addition to the nuclear reactor that it has, the radioactive dump that used to be where the turf building is, and the pesticide facility. So we have to negotiate with others.
Thank you. Kathy?
In my work for the state of Ohio, I work on energy conservation performance contracts. And I have worked on these projects for a number of years, projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. At the state level, the biggest consumer of energy is the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. And these projects have been very successful for reducing the energy level and water consumption for those facilities. I have helped the public colleges and universities work on these projects as well and come up with creative financing solutions. We use a performance contract model where the project pays for itself out of the energy and water savings, and I would love to explore that type of creative options at the city level. We also have a lot of experts in sustainability issues who live right here in Upper Arlington, and I would love to explore ideas with them and come up with a strategic plan for sustainability in Upper Arlington.
Thank you. Tammy.
Thank you. So to remain a city of choice well into the future, sustainability is certainly something that we need to take a long-term view at. Like Michelle said, it's in budget. One thing that we do well here in Upper Arlington is that we deliver goals on time, on budget. With sustainability, though, we have to have a more engaged citizen in this process as well. Humans are the largest producers of methane. Starting my career as a project engineer, I worked on waste reduction projects across this country. So I have a very deep understanding not only on how we get there, but how we measure it. So for me, we are still lacking metrics in how we're going to get to 2030 and have this zero waste. If we don't develop the metrics in which we're tracking it, we can't engage the citizens. Our recycling programs, our waste programs, our composting with food, these are all holistic, taking a holistic look at sustainability and not just energy reduction and carbon reduction as well. Thank you so much.
Stacy?
Absolutely, sustainability is critical to our future. And I think, in addition to the recognition that we've received in Central Ohio as a sustainability leader from the EPA, encouraging environmental excellence, as well as being recognized as a Tree City USA, we have done great work, but there's a lot more to do. So I believe looking at our master plan again to make sure that we are continuing to incorporate sustainability as a critical part. I do believe, I actually spoke to a gentleman earlier this evening who has a nonprofit focused on helping organizations and cities to actually take steps to become a more sustainable city. So I think we have a lot of great talent. I'm looking at someone else who has a lot of great talent and expertise in this area, and I think we can leverage that as we create our master plan and focus on making sure that sustainability is part of that master plan.
Great. Okay, you'll have 1 minute for this question. It's kind of a cut-down version of the one we did earlier. We're going to ask you to identify a positive decision and direction the City Council has taken recently, how you support it, and then, on the other hand, a decision that the Council made that you did not support and how you might address it. So you have to do that in a minute. Sorry, but we're trying to condense a little bit here. So, Michelle?
Oh, great. First of all, the best decision we ever made was to establish a community-based task force to develop a plan for our community center, without a doubt. That was the number one thing we did best, and I'm proudest of that one thing. One thing we did that I wasn't as crazy about? I guess I would say to stay on Zoom as long as we did during the pandemic. I think Zoom created a barrier between the public and our council that is now we're having to overcome. I understand that there were issues as far as concerns of health and safety. Totally get that. But that being said, I wish we had come back sooner. I think we kind of lost some engagement in that time.
Jim?
Listen, there's a lot of things I'm proud of. I'm proud of approving school resource officers in our school. I'm proud of the fact that I launched an effort to conduct a performance audit on our city operations. I'm proud of the fact that we created a Citizens Financial Task Force to look deeply into our finances, Community Center, Feasibility Task Force, and on things that I would do, things that maybe I've opposed or looked at or thought differently on, we could have another 5-minute discussion on that. I think out of any member of council, I've been a dissenting vote more than anybody else. The best advice I ever had was don't ever think about re-election until the very last minute, because you will always call it as you see it. That's exactly what I've done. I voted continuously against unnecessary city regulation or unnecessary funding or spending, and I'll continue to do that in the next 4 years.
Andre?
Well, certainly I think the positive things that have happened is the increased transparency so that the citizens in the city know what is going on, what is being debated, what the issues are. And again, I'm grateful to the council, to the existing councillors to do that, that have done that. I hope that we will continue in this vein in the future. Now, some of the decisions that I would not have supported is, I think, the huge variation that was given to the development east of North Star and south of Lane. I think originally that area was zoned for smaller development than necessary, but in order to gain income for the city, I think a huge variation was given, and was not happy about that.
Thank you. Kathy, one you liked and one you didn't.
I was very supportive of the community center. I canvassed for the community center. I think that was the right decision to try to pursue the community center at this time, and I'm very excited about the community center. I think the communication for that opportunity was very well done. When I was knocking on doors for the community center, people had information about the budget, about what the decision was, and I thought they did a good job for that. An area that I think needs improvement is the area of neighborhood compatibility. When I am talking to residents, that is a topic that's very important, and they are not clear that we have standards. I understand we do have standards and how they're being enforced, and really communicating that with residents.
Okay, thank you. Kemi.
So the question, if I have this right, is what is...
One decision the City
From the
Council
City
made that
Council.
you liked and one that you disagreed with.
Okay. It's two sides of the same coin here. The thing that I like that the City Council did was the establishment of our Community Relations Committee. I appreciate the process that went into that. That is listening to the residents that came forward, believing that we had that, the focus groups that went into evaluating that, and then council voting for that. The flip side of that issue is also how that the committee is designed, and that is their influence and the decision making. It simply serves as a resource right now, and I think it's a miss, especially given that diversity, equity, and inclusion is an economic imperative for the city, to just have that as kind of this resource that's not a full arm working hand in hand with the Community Relations Committee. So I think there was a miss in how that was formed. Thank you.
Very good. Stacy?
Yeah, so I think the thing that I would most agree with recently is the community center and the process that was taken through the community center. So developing a community center feasibility task force. So a team of residents who went out, talked to people, understood how this process came about in the past, and really understood what the residents wanted. I think that could be a possible best practice. Sharing with other communities. I think the next steps for that are making sure that we continue to engage our residents in the design and build, and make sure that those priorities from residents and needs from residents are within our fiscal expectations set forth by the task force. I think the thing that we could do better, as far as what I've heard knocking on doors, is making sure that residents feel they are heard, so engage them earlier in the process, particularly with development, making sure that we are working with our residents earlier in the process and engaging them throughout the process.
Finally, Brian.
Great, thank you. So I'm very proud of a lot of things that we've done on council, because I think what we've seen is a lot of it has worked, and it's been positive because we've worked civilly with each other and with residents. So we don't come up with decisions on our own. And so if you look at maybe the why, I tried to mention earlier as to something we disagreed with, I don't think it necessarily comes from this council, but maybe lessons we learned from prior councils, and that's the processes by which we make decisions. I think every great thing that I can speak of that we've done in the last 4 years has come from a process of transparency and civility in the process that it comes to, even on things that we have disagreed. And there's been things we disagreed on, but you'll see publicly that we are very civil with ourselves because we're working with each other when there are differences to come to some resolution before it comes necessarily in front of you. We're talking to you, we're talking to each other, in a way that comes to some solution. So my only gripe with the government is this is a little bit slower than I want. It's taken 4 years to get where we are, but I need 4 more years to finish. So that would be my one gripe, is it just doesn't move as fast as I would like it to.
All right, thank you. All right, we have come to the end of our informative evening. As we come to a close, we're going to give you 1 final minute to make your final pitch for votes, and we're going to begin this final round with Jim.
Thanks again for coming tonight. I want to let you all know that while we might see great polarization across this country and dysfunction in Washington or maybe state government, it's simply not like that here on City Council. And I think that's something we can all be proud of. We all work in a collaborative spirit together. We don't always agree on things to move our community forward. And listen, as long as I've lived in this community, I'm proud to say that I've never seen the waters this calm on a City Council election. When I'm knocking doors, there doesn't seem to be any major issues to our residents. And I believe that's because of the culture that we've been trying to create on council, one of civic engagement, transparency, increased communications, something I've really been top of my list. And I really want to serve for another 4 years and be honored to have your vote to cement this style moving forward so that this new style can continue to serve residents into the future, and I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Andre.
Okay, I agree that it's extremely important for this council to engage in a civil manner with each other. I came from a background, political background, where there was a lot of instability, and I would certainly not want to be in an environment like that anymore. My grandparents suffered both under the Nazis in Czechoslovakia as well as the Communist Party. My mother's relatives suffered under the Cultural Revolution, and I had to move because of the Soviet invasion. So I'm actually glad I'm in Upper Arlington and being in a stable and civil environment. And since I have 2 granddaughters whom I want to make the world better, I would like to focus on sustainability and accelerate our sustainability efforts as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you for hosting us this evening. I am from Upper Arlington. I am raising my kids here, and I have knocked over 2,600 doors myself because I want to hear from you, and I want to represent you and the issues that are important to you. And I plan to continue that for the rest of my campaign, and I would continue that if I was elected to council and have an open door policy. When I was in college, I worked in a refugee office, and I was in charge of a resettlement program for refugees from Cuba. I had to find them housing and English classes and jobs and make them feel welcome. And I went to law school to make a difference at a higher level. I have always been committed to public service. I am a fiscal watchdog of state taxpayer dollars. I want to bring that skill set to City Council. I want to be your fiscal watchdog, and I have the experience and the skill set necessary for the issues facing Upper Arlington right now, and I would love to earn your vote.
Yukemi.
Thank you. It has been just a great honor to be here tonight. A vote for me on November 2nd is a vote for a leader that is visionary and creative, and one that understands that Upper Arlington is on the cusp of change. In order to continue to attract and retain residents here, in order to continue to be the community of choice, we need a renewed vision, one that creates our sense of place and our competitive advantage in Central Ohio. And that's what my unique experiences are. When we build boards, we're always looking for what perspective do they bring. I am the new growth. I am the new UA. And so as we are going through that, right, how do we bridge where we've been and where we're going? How do we make sure that more of me's are able to be here in UA and feel welcome here in UA? That's the perspective I'm bringing to add to City Council. So I ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy.
Thank you. So my husband and I have been part of the Upper Arlington Civic Association 4th of July Committee for the past 5 years. We've served as general chairs the last 2 years. I've served as PTO co-president at my children's school at Barrington Elementary School, and I'm a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I'm committed to this community. That, paired with my professional experience, uniquely positions me to lead this city through the exciting time. A few Saturdays ago, I was out knocking on doors. I came home and ate lunch with my family. And then as I was going back out, my 9-year-old son said, "Wow, Mom, you're really working hard at this. You must really want this." And so while this is a lot of time, it's very rewarding to see that he sees my passion, my belief in this community, and the effort I'm willing to put forward. So I ask for your vote, and I promise I will work hard continuing.
Brian?
Great. So, as a husband with 3 young kids and more than a full-time job, as a coach of my kids' sports teams, I get asked all the time, why are you doing this? And it's my passion. I was raised by a civil servant. I find a calling to this, and I have the experience and expertise that nobody else has up here. I can't overstate how important the experience is on city council to get things done. It takes a few years to pick up and get running with it. We've seen what we've done over the last 4 years, and I have that experience. So on the expertise side, I never got to it in my opening because it was maybe 5 minutes and I only had 1. I am a M&A transactional attorney that brings sides together on complex deals. I don't work out of a position of strength. I am bringing people together for the common goal of getting something done. And that experience on city council is important because we're always dealing with situations where not everybody feels the same way. We need everybody to come together, give a little bit, take a little bit, find what works, and make it happen. And with that experience and that expertise, that makes me uniquely qualified for city council, and I'd love your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Finally, Michelle.
I get to be last. So some people probably say I'm obsessed with budgets, but I know that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, young or old, longtime resident or new to the community, we can only achieve our goals for Upper Arlington with sound money management. That's my expertise, and that's my focus as a member on City Council. We've accomplished a lot through some challenges in the last 4 years. We have a community center coming in 2024, but the work isn't finished. And with your vote, I will continue to use my almost 35 years of financial experience in a municipal setting to keep Upper Arlington's AAA rating as we embark on the single largest investment ever undertaken by our city. I believe the best way to lead our city is to value our past and use it as the basis for a vision for our future. With your support, I'll continue to work to make all that is good about this community and strive to make it great. So again, I am Michelle Hoyle, and I would appreciate being reelected with one of your 4 votes on either November 2nd or during early voting. Thank you all for staying. I know this has been a long night.
And I want to say on behalf of the UA community, thank you all for running for these very important positions and for showing up to take questions tonight. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the UA leadership group, we want to thank you all for attending tonight. We hope you learned something important about all of these candidates, and if they didn't answer a question that you have, feel free to reach out to them. You can get more information about each candidate on the UA leadership website. And don't forget to vote November 2nd. And I'll see some of you at 4:25 a.m. on Good Day Columbus. So, good night. No?